You turn on your AC system, you're excited for air conditioning, you're excited for it to get cooler or hotter, and you smell that smelly smell that smells smelly. Today, we're gonna learn what we can do about it. If your system is creating a smell, for cooling season, you're more than likely going to experience kind of a, they call it dirty sock syndrome, where it just kind of smells like a locker room in a way. Basically what's happening, so I'm gonna draw, so here's your HVAC system, a big old rectangle, nothing's to scale, but you get the picture. Here's your, so here's your return, here is your furnace, and then here is your coil, and then here is your supply plenum. So that's where all your ductwork's connected to, like so. Your return air is over here. It's got bigger trunk lines. You may have less of those and more of these. And so the smell that you're smelling, that's smelly, is coming from this location. And so during the summer, that smell is going to most likely be coming from this location right here, because your evaporator coil on the inside produces water, and so it's removing humidity from the house. And so what happens is over time you'll have whenever you have the introduction of water, and maybe there's some products out there that can help with this, but your evaporator coil is kind of by itself. It's got a bunch of condensation, and that condensation with the mixture of kind of debris and just like household dust and contaminants, going through your system. Well, if it doesn't get caught by, a filter system that would be located before your furnace, either here or it may be a filter grill. So we'll just say FG for filter grill in your ceiling or something like that. If it doesn't get caught here or here, then it gets caught in your evaporator coil. That dust and contaminants will kind of stack up on the evaporator coil, and then, which is a breeding zone for bacteria and viruses and all sorts of things, especially within your condensation pan. And so some things to do to make sure, if you're smelling that smell that's smelly, is to make sure that, one, your condensation drain line is clear. And so your condensation drain line is what's the exit for all the water that your evaporator coil produces. It can, if this line gets clogged up in any way, shape, or form, and it's getting clogged up because there's maybe excess of debris. And so you want to make sure that one is completely clear, and then make sure your pan is also clear of debris as well. Some very simple tricks you can put there. So the most easiest thing to be done would be you can put a piece of copper in the water. What that does, and I'm going to keep this very simple, it helps to ionize the water and helps kill bacteria. That's the most simple way to explain it. There's more scientific explanations. That's not for today. But that's a very easy way to kind of help keep the pan clear. Now, you may be experiencing, well, back in the day, we really it didn't seem to be as much of a problem, but now it seems to be an issue. Why is that? Well, the evaporator coils, due to refrigeration, new refrigerants and new regulations, they changed from copper coils to aluminum. And so aluminum doesn't have the same properties that copper does, and it doesn't react with the water in the same way, where it was kind of beneficial. It kind of helped keep the water clean. Copper, for whatever reason, helps keep the water more clear. And so, and then these newer units help produce more, it helps remove more humidity from the house, which means you're going to have an excess of water in the evaporator coil, which is great for the living environment, bad for this environment. And so you want to make sure that, one, this is completely clean. You're not getting excess of debris and contaminants on the evaporator coil. Double check and make sure your filters are changed either at the filter grill or before the unit. There's two rules of thought. A lot of people like filter grills in before the ductwork, which is great. It helps keep your ductwork cleaner. And then a lot of people like the filter before the unit. You're going to ask, well, Kolby, which one's better? Changing them regularly is better. Do it more often, please. For everything, change your filters. It needs to happen more often than you want to. And I understand that's a hard bargain. That's a hard trade-off. But if you don't want that smells smelly, change your filters more often, please. And that will also, just a caveat, it'll protect your system. It'll let things to last longer. Your blower motor won't get nearly as dirty. Your heat exchanger won't get nearly as dirty. And that proceeds into the next conversation about that smelly smell for heating. So, smelly smell for heating happens. You have we're just going to do this weird sine wave. This is your heat exchanger. So a furnace, and this is also true for just air handlers. So if you don't have a gas furnace, a similar thing happens on what would be the heat strips. And so for the picture, this is an air handler and furnace combined. So anyways, this is either your heat strips, so we'll say HS, or heat exchanger, HE. Gets the idea across. All right, so your heat exchanger, heat strips, you have fire electricity that goes through this thing, which air passes by it, and it heats up the air. What happens if your filters are not changed regularly, or maybe you don't have like a higher efficiency filter system? Then those dust contaminants and particles just every day from just living will make its way into the system. And in the same way that they compile on the evaporator coil, they can also compile on that heat exchanger or heat strip. And you're not going to experience the smells because there's no water. There shouldn't be any water on this at all. So it's not going to have that like bacteria environment where things could grow and producing that smelly smell that smells smelly. And so you're going to have this stack up during just regular operation, but you're going to smell it at a specific time of the year. And that time of the year is whenever you kick your, what is it? Your furnace on. Yes, absolutely. Whenever you kick your furnace on and you smell that smelly smell, you're like, well, at least it's working. Well, anyways, well, that's dust particles burning off that heat exchanger. That is that smelly smell. It smells smelly. It's just contaminants, dust particles on that heat exchanger, and that is producing a lovely burnt smell. Some easy things that you can do. The most effective thing that you can do today would be change your filters. Change your filters before the unit. If that's how your system's set up, change your filters and your sealings. Just do it more often, please. It'll protect your system. It'll help mitigate a lot of that dust contaminants stacking on the heat exchanger or heat strips and evaporator coil, where it will help to reduce that smelly smell that's scattered. Now, you're like, well, Kolby, I change my filters regularly and I still experience those smells. Okay, there are some situations. So let's say you've got filters in the ceiling. Some other things, and this is kind of going back to the two different approaches, like, well, do I filter it in the ceiling or do I filter it before the unit? If you're having that excess of, if it's still smelling smelly, that smelly smell, I would make sure that your ductwork is properly sealed. Because there have been instances where, let's say you're changing your filters on the regular, however, your ductwork's disconnected up in the attic space. And so you're now pulling in, so instead, let's say, so the disconnection is happening here. It's barely connected. You're changing filters regularly, but air is passing from your attic space. So we'll just say attic air that is not filtered at all is now making its way into the system. Now, and this is true for not a lot of homes, but I've seen it where you have maybe exhaust fans not venting properly. It does exist. It does happen. This may be the case where some venting is disconnected up in the attic space. It's like, well, and maybe the house is not super well vented with like the soffits and all that stuff. And so you're introducing what is exhaust from a bathroom up into the attic space, and then it's being sucked right back into the house because of the return air being disconnected. So make sure your ductwork is well sealed. That's going to help with just filtration. That's going to also help with just air quality inside the home. That's also going to help to reduce the smelly smell. It smells smelly. And then there are some other things that we can do. We can introduce what would be basically I call it kind of a medical grade filtration system, or you could do a 4-inch up to a 5-inch media filter. And what that does is that it increases the amount of surface area they have on that filter. The filters tend to last longer, and that they do a better job connecting more dust particles as they operate. There are some other items that paired with a medical grade filtration system where you can do ionizers. There's some popular ones out there. We do specifically like the iWave or the phenomenal air. Those are two items that we sell that can help with this. They basically positively charge the air as it passes by it. And what that does is the particles will be negative or positive, and you have magnet. They'll kind of get stuck together, and they'll be large enough to be caught in your filter system more effectively. So the smallest of minute particles that can sometimes pass by your filter grill, by your filters, the ionization can help do that. It can also mitigate and helps protect bacteria growth within the evaporator coil. So that way, whenever your system is running, it helps to reduce those smells. And so, and there's a bunch of literature out there I'm not going to go into super big detail. You're more than welcome to read on those 2 items on how they can help. But the simplest way to explain it is they help to filter the air through the house and help protect from bacteria growing within your system. So if you are experiencing, like if you're concerned about your HVAC system kind of producing that smelly smell, you're like, well, what does that do? How, should I be concerned about that? I think that's as far as level of concern, like I would say from a scale from 1 to 10, I'd say like 3. And I say that because this, for the most part, especially during the winter time, the dust that will burn off and it will stop doing that over a period of time. But the smelly smell lets me know that maybe your filters aren't doing what they're supposed to, which can negatively affect the air quality within the house. And so if you are someone who, if you're someone who maybe has some respiratory conditions, you struggle with allergies, seasonal allergies and stuff like that, you feel like your air quality is not what you want it to be, then a really easy way would be to improve the filtration system on your unit. That will help with those smells because the smells are just letting me know like, hey, your filter's not doing what it's supposed to. You've got dust and obviously with your evaporator coil kind of being a breeding ground, that can result in some things, some viruses, bacteria growing on that evaporator coil that you wouldn't want to breathe in yourself. And so those are just some symptoms that happen that I would just say, hey, like if that's something that's concerning, there's some easy things that you can do to help mitigate that. There's some pretty cost-effective routes that you can do to help reduce those smells. But at the end of the day, those smells are coming for a reason, and a lot of times the source of that is because your filters are not doing what they're supposed to, or your ductwork's not sealed appropriately, where you're getting dust filtration into the unit that's not supposed to be there. So your system would be working, but as far as air quality is concerned, I would bump it. If I was rating the difference, like, is my system going to break down versus how good is my air quality? I would say if you smell those smells, air quality, I would say I'd be concerned about it from like a 1 to 10. I would say 7. And so that's just indicative of your filters not doing what they're supposed to. So if you have an HVAC system and whenever you turn it on and it produces that smelly smell, that smells smelly, and you're within the Oklahoma City metro area, we'd love to help. Give us a call. Scan the QR code, top left, to get more information. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day.
Yarbrough and Sons, Yarbrough and Sons.